Good morning. It's 8:59 and we have a very tight agenda today, so please take your seat. Okay. All right, nobody walking in the room. Good morning. I'm Helen McGrath, the president of the Gulf Shore Association of Condominium. On behalf of the entire GSAC board that is here today, I'd like to welcome you. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters of Collier County, who is with us today for vote by mail sign up and precinct information, and they have agreed to stay on after the forum today for additional sign-ups if you'd like. I'd also like to acknowledge the Naples City Council persons in the room with us today. Both Councilperson Penniman and Councilperson Barton are with us today, and I'd like to thank them for joining us. We have a very full forum lineup today, so a few reminders. We're videotaping the entire session. It'll be on our website in a few days. Please silence all of your devices. There will be no Q&A. Please refrain from applauding individual candidates. Every candidate, the process we will go through is every candidate will have a 2-minute introduction. Then they will have 11 minutes to respond to the questions. The questions are also in your booklet, and they have been previously shared with the candidates. At minute 13, I'll ask the candidates to summarize, and then at minute 15, they'll walk out the exit door. The candidates will not be present for each other's answers to the questions. And finally, the order of the candidates is based on a random drawing by the GSAC board, if you're trying to figure that out, if it looks like a weird order. So time limits will be strictly enforced. So with that, I'd like to welcome John Kroll up to the stage. Good morning. Good morning, John. John, tell us why you're the right choice.
I gather this includes my introduction, but first I want to thank the GSAC organization for putting this together. So I'm very impressed with, I had trouble finding a parking space, which is, all the other events I went to, it was no problem. So I applaud all of you for being proactive as good citizens and engaging, because engagement is key. My whole campaign is a grassroots campaign, and engagement is I'm a firm believer of it, because I think from the bottom up is how we change our political environment. And we got to start at the bottom, get the right people in the right seats. Well, I'm John Kroll for City Council, 22-year resident, raised my family here. My daughter went to Seacrest Community School. Before I even moved down there, I had a second home in Park Shore. We had to move. When we came down there full time, we moved because it was too small. I had 2 golden retrievers at the time, and it was a townhouse on the water there, and it was limited size. So we moved down towards the Oyster Bay area, where I raised my daughter. My wife and I still reside there. It was close to high school, which is important because getting the fire drill, getting up every morning, it's nice having a 10-minute ride versus a long ride. If you have a child, you probably can relate to that. I also understand the first-hand issues of flooding. I've experienced it. I had 3 feet of water in the bottom part of my house. I had a business in 10 City that had 4 feet in it. I had an investment property that was totally flooded. So I firsthand can empathize and understand what that whole process is about. I'm not a politician. I'm a public servant. I'm doing this as a concerned resident. I've seen some red flags over the last 22 years I've been here, and I'm very concerned about certain things.
Okay, John, let's get started with the
Okay.
interview.
Great.
Great.
Sorry.
Question number one. How would you ensure that the interests and concerns of all Naples neighborhoods are fairly considered in council decision-making? Explain how you would balance the needs of different neighborhoods.
Well, I've already done this. I chair the Code Enforcement Board in the City of Naples. I volunteered for that. I'm on my second term as chairman. And we've treated everybody with transparency, fairness, and kept it a principled organization. And now we'll do the same thing in City Council. Every resident voice matters. We all need to work together to get things done. And there's been too much passing the buck in the past. We have to get stuff done. And my financial background, my real estate background, all this comes into very good play with what we need to do right now. Broad input and discussions are important to me, so I do like community involvement. I'm really excited to see the turnout this morning so early. But we must prioritize on level of need, not by location. Okay, that's what it is. It's about. You know, we have to be real. Last night it was at the River Park debate, and this has been a community. I walked it with my family, and I couldn't find a drain pipe anywhere. I mean, it's like it's really a small community, but no infrastructure. We can't have this. Can't have this in our town. I love this city and want to protect it, and that's why my slogan came in: "Protect and Preserve Paradise," because that's really what it's all about, protecting our community.
Great. Question number two. How would you collaborate with the Collier County Commissioners and staff to minimize the negative impacts of growth on Naples?
Thank you for that question. This is such an important question because one of the biggest things I've observed is the fact that our collaboration with state, federal, county has not been good. Has not been good. I mean, I can give you example after example. We have a fertilizer ban during rainy season. The county doesn't. Well, it's coming down into Naples Bay where I live. I mean, it's like it's lacking common sense almost. It's just basic stuff. We can get a lot of stuff done through coordination. So we need to collaborate better with all the other governments, and we got to use our leverage on controlling growth. If we have something that's outside the city limits. I live by the Davis Triangle. I don't know if people have seen that, but it's like I thought it was in Manhattan again. You know, I was like walking around there, like, whoa, what's this? And I'm not anti-growth, but I'm anti-bad development. I mean, you just can't have bad development, and you've got to stick with your codes. Very strict on codes. Variances should never be rubber stamped. Rubber stamping of variances variances were designed for hardships and for something that may benefit the community as a whole, but not for rubber stamping. And there's way too much variances getting passed in the county and in the city as well. And I would stand firm against that. Large developments must have comprehensive impact assessments. I mean, I don't think that's really being done because you look at the Davis Triangle, just the sound effect that's echoing back in my community, that's changed the whole composition of the area. I can't find a blade of grass anywhere around there anymore. And I look at Sandpiper, where I come out of, it's the lowest level part of that. So I hope they plan good underground water storage because it's all going to come flowing down in that direction. So these things we just can't tolerate. We can't tolerate things that are going to destroy our way of life. We just can't tolerate that. Growth causes new pollution, a little traffic congestion getting here, but loss of green space, affects our unique coastal charm that we have. We must preserve our community, our events, our public spaces, our walkable areas, our local businesses, preserve our unique identity. But controlling growth, we could do a lot. And use the leverage of the utilities. Because the Davis Triangle, we supply the water there. I mean, just from water pressure assessments on, I don't know if there was what was done. I've asked questions about it. I don't have really good answers yet. But we do have power because we control the utilities in these developments. We can pull back if we need to. And I'm
Great.
for using that leverage.
Great, leading into question number 3. Explain how you would work toward implementing the priorities identified in the Naples Comprehensive Plan, specifically maintaining a small town feel and preserving the green jewel. Outline practical measures you would recommend to maintain Naples' unique character and environmental assets.
I must say, this is a very efficient meeting. I like that. I mean, this is something that we have to talk about when we get to the other question about efficiency. But maybe we should, look at hiring you. But we have to follow the plan and follow our code and follow our zoning. We have to align our budget with our plan. My number one issue is infrastructure resiliency, and we need to stop the environmental degradation that's going on. Loss of wildlife, flooding, water quality. I mean, water quality hasn't been talked a lot about this debate, but it's my number 2 priority. I've seen 22 years of water quality declining. A few days ago, Fort Myers had to close down a beach because of bacteria count. There's been a case of flesh-eating bacteria in our town. We can't have this. We cannot have this. And the water quality issue is a big issue for me, and there are solutions, and there's some easy things to start, but we have to be very focused on that. We need to make, what I really want, and I know we can do it, I want to make the city of Naples the number 1 most resilient city in the state.
Well, that's a great lead-in. How should the city prioritize projects related to essential resiliency infrastructure, considering the significant and rapidly increasing cost? What funding approaches would you recommend to ensure necessary improvements can be made in a fiscally responsible way?
And that's a good question, and I appreciate that. We have to put everything on the table. Long-term municipal bond issue, maybe look at the tourist tax if there's a way to, for beaches and dune restoration, figure out a way there to help pay for that there. Stormwater utility fee is kind of based on user pay concept, so those are things we got to look at. Grants from FEMA, DEP, Army Corps, all have to be looked at. So I think there's a lot of things we got to look at, and maybe even the private sector. Maybe we have some very passionate people about the city of Naples that want to help with a project, and we could give naming rights to something. And there's things we could do short term on resiliency. I mean, I look at the stormwater pipes in my street, for example. They're cast iron, they're 12 inches, they've been in the ground for 60, 70 years. I don't think they've ever been maintained. They're probably 3/4 clogged. I mean, they just started to put some backflow valves on, which, by the way, that's another discussion. Of the 330 backflow valves we were given on a grant basis, we probably only installed about half of them so far. So there's a lot of work needs to be done there. But I think we should look at maintenance issues as part of this, because we can't overnight give everybody 30-inch reinforced concrete storm dorm pipes overnight. But what we can do is hire a person and staff, would probably be the cheapest way to do it, and ever get a jetter from a plumber, the jetting machines? Those machines cost a plumber $5,000, and they're in the black on those things after like 1 or 2 jobs. I mean, so if we had our own jetter machine and clean these pipes, we could restore better flow through our pipes. We could move the water faster, and that's like a real short-term situation where you put somebody on the schedule. Okay, Park Shore, you're here for 3 months. You're down in Port Royal for a month. You're down, and move it around and at least help our drainage system in the short term. But there are ideas like that we could do, common sense ideas, and that's where I'm for common sense. We want to look at costs, and that's another thing. You bid out big contracts like $100 million, you're going to get 3 people bidding. But if we create smaller projects, like if we took last night in Riverwalk, for example, one smaller project and bid that out, we're going to get 20 bidders on that. The bigger projects, you're going to get like oligopoly bidding. So you're going to get a much better cost basis on how you bid stuff. And this is the part of real-world business I would bring into the government that we have to look at. So that's very important.
Okay. Number 5, how would you define the dividing line between the roles of council members and city staff when running the city? Describe measures you would recommend to prevent micromanagement and ensure that each function operates within its proper scope as outlined in the city charter.
This is such a good question, and it really concerns me. And I'd be willing to work with the mayor and all that to reform these meetings. But micromanagement weakens trust, it slows progress, it increases legal and political risk, undermines professional governance. Council is responsible for setting policies, priorities, and putting up guardrails, not to manage projects or staff. That's the manager's job. The manager's job is to staff supervisor, execution, operations. That's our manager. And I think we've had some changes in staff recently that are very positive. And I think this is an area that efficiency of our council meeting, I think, is a big thing I'd like to work on too. So those are things I want to take.
Thank you, John. You have 2 minutes to summarize.
Okay. Okay. In close, February 3rd to me is a consequential election. It's not to me as a normal election. And I'll tell you why. I think we have a council. We got 8 people running for 3 seats. I think there's hidden agendas out there. I think there's even possibly buying of seats going on out there in that mentality by a controlling group. I'm a strong, independent person. No one owns me. I'm my own man. I'm independent thought process. I'm my own guy. I'm a strong advocate for the residents first. And also, I think we need new blood in council. I think we need to get things done. We can't have this pass the buck mentality or come in and have like lengthy discussions and just nothing gets done. In code enforcement, what I did, we shortened our meetings practically in half by modifying, instead of having 2 motions, we went to 1. In discussion, if someone has nothing to say, they don't have to say anything. I mean, council, everybody's got to pontificate one after another. I'm for making it more efficient and really make it more factual and move things along. So I have decades of good business experience versus bad political experience that some people have. Again, I want the city to be #1 in resiliency. I really feel we can get there. I feel that the city is at a crossing point. And in close, please vote for me on the 3rd of February. I will not let you down.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please.
It's the most efficient debate I've ever been in. I feel like I just
Please exit
very impressed.
to the right here. We'll keep that. Okay. Next on, please welcome Dan Barone. Okay, we got Dan Barone coming in. Okay. Good morning, Dan. Please tell us in 2 minutes why you're the right choice. Sit.
Okay, there's a lot of candidates, so I've got to make this quick. I am a longtime local. I've lived in Naples since I was 8 years old, 1991. I went to Naples High School, met my wife there, and now we're raising our 2 young daughters in the city. They both attend local city schools as well. Currently, professionally, I am the co-founder and president of my own CPA firm. And prior to that, I was in my family's business for over 20 years. And I want to bring this up because, especially for this forum, you're an association of condo associations. And my family's business was a small construction firm, and we focus primarily on single-family homes and condo remodels. So we've done a lot of work in many of your buildings, and I understand some of the intricacies that go into living in a condo. Condo residents have more to deal with than single-family residents, in that you have to deal with not only your own unit, you have to deal with the building, and then you've got regulations for all of your buildings coming from the local side and also state and federal. I also have my mother-in-law, who happens to be here, is a resident in Luzon. So my wife was one of the few children growing up on Gulf Shore Boulevard way back in the 90s. I'd like to run for city council because living here so long as I have, I'm noticing the trend of the city kind of turning in a direction that I don't recognize. And I want to help make a difference and get the city back on track. I feel that we are spending too much time on issues that don't impact us as residents. And I want to make sure that we turn our focus to impactful actions that actually help us as residents. We're getting too far behind on critical needs like our stormwater infrastructure, and these projects, if they're left unattended to, can lead to much bigger problems than they even are now, and we've ignored them too long, and that's what I'd like to address.
Great, thanks. Let's start the interview, Dan. How would you ensure that the interests and concerns of all Naples neighborhoods are fairly considered in council decision-making? Explain how you would balance the needs of different neighborhoods.
Sure. So I'm from Sun Terrace. For those of you that don't know, that's the neighborhood east of 41 west of Goodlet, just north of Naples High School. Running for city council is to represent the city as a whole. I'm not running for city council to benefit my neighborhood in any means. The city council's job is to run the entire city and run it effectively. I view neighborhood needs as all important. What we have to do is when issues come up, for example, let's go back to the stormwater infrastructure. So when issues come up, there's going to be some neighborhoods that start off in more of a need than others. And what we need to do is look at the citywide scope and judge each neighborhood by the severeness of what their current need is. And then we tackle them one by one, starting with the most severe and going through the list. One thing that council definitely needs to improve is just getting started on projects. If we can't let perfection be the enemy of good. If we don't just get started on projects and we wait for the perfect alignment of taking care of projects over time, we miss on actually getting action, starting, and helping neighborhoods that especially need to get going right away. So I view things very pragmatically. Look at whose needs need to be met first, because they have the situation that they're in is most dire, and then we systematically go through that and actually get things accomplished.
Great. Question number 2. How would you collaborate with the Collier County Commission and staff to minimize the negative impacts on Naples?
Living here since 1991, I've seen a lot of growth. When I first moved here, I don't really remember much east of Airport Road. So Naples has changed a lot, and in my opinion, the county over the years has kind of done a poor job in planning. I think that's why we're seeing Naples is always going to have growth. People are always going to want to move here, and that's a good thing. But how Collier County has been planned over the years has kind of led to some of these growth problems. We've had development upon development, stacked one after the other, and instead of creating regular city centers or little retail centers where each area of Collier County has somewhere to go go out for shopping, dining, commercial. Everything funnels too close to us because that's where all the infrastructure is. And of course, we have the enormous asset of the beach. So people want to funnel to the beach, go to 5th Avenue, 3rd Street for dining, shopping, and they don't have any other options. And so that's why we have to kind of tackle growth as an issue, because we're getting all this influx of Collier County residents into the city, and we're having to manage that with, increased population needs. So our police department, for example, can't handle large events because there's more people there for these events than they're staffed for to handle for the city. So I think dealing with the county is of utmost importance. I'd like to create a better relationship with them so they understand our needs. City of Naples provides about 25% of property tax revenue for the county, so we absolutely have leverage to speak to them on what our needs are and what we're looking for. And it's just better to work collaboratively so they don't just rubber stamp development projects that are right on our border and essentially give us de facto city residents without them even living in the city.
Question number 3. Explain how you would work toward implementing the priorities identified in the Naples Comprehensive Plan, specifically maintaining a small town feel and preserving the green jewel. Outline practical measures you would recommend to maintain Naples' unique character and environmental assets.
I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but I'm currently on the Planning Advisory Board for the City of Naples, and one of the Planning Advisory Board's functions is to help implement the comprehensive plan. So we're in the middle of doing one right now. I believe it's for 2045, and their website, I believe, is naples2045.com. If you haven't looked at the comprehensive plan, which is in progress right now, I recommend going on that website and getting involved with that because there is a large aspect of that needs public input. So I encourage everyone to go on there and look at that. To me, the small town charm of Naples, especially since living here in 1991, has a lot more to deal with the people living here than what the buildings look like. I think that Naples' biggest asset is that, especially for people that have lived here a long time, is you can go into a local business and have a connection with that business owner. Maybe their family lives on your street, or you're in the same condo building as them or a relative, and you have that connection. That, to me, as long as we have that, we can sustain our small town charm feel. As far as our environmental, it's called the green jewel aspect of Naples, and that's keeping Naples beautiful as we all know it. And I think there's multiple elements to that, and in order to continue that moving forward, I think what we need to look at are some of the assets for planning when new projects come up or some redevelopment comes through. I think the walkability of Naples should be a priority. I think that's a fantastic asset to have. So when you're downtown, what can you walk to from, for shopping, to maybe to your residence? Having that transportation aspect where, getting from your neighborhood down to downtown or anywhere else in the city of Naples, you're not dealing with a lot of, traffic. It's a pleasant drive, and you have, beautiful landscaping along the way that the city maintains. Keeping all of that consistent and in our plan, I think will help preserve all of that.
Number 4, how should the city prioritize projects related to essential resiliency infrastructure, considering the significant and rapidly increasing costs? What funding approaches would you recommend to ensure necessary improvements can be made in a fiscally responsible way?
Yeah, this is probably the biggest issue for me on the campaign trail. About 2 years ago, when I was at a President's Council meeting for my neighborhoods association, the city manager at the time was bringing up some of the stormwater projects that were coming up in the future. And at that time, he was throwing a price tag, I want to say it was $800 million. We've got quotes right now of $600 million plus. That number is going to continue to go up. Our stormwater infrastructure is very old. I don't know how much of it has been looked at or redone since the 70s. So it's a major need coming up, and we have to prioritize it within our budget. I know the city's already starting on working that with some increased stormwater fees, but we've got to look at all aspects of funding that we can. There's external fundings that we can look at from grants, going into some financing options such as bonds, but we can also do some preventative spending as well. We have to make that a priority because there are other local communities that are a little bit further down the road than us in ignoring it, and now they're running into major problems. And we don't want to get into that situation here in Naples. We have the ability to, put the right people in place and actually use our city resources to take care of addressing this need. The world is changing as far as the impact of these storms. I know that in my mother-in-law's building, she's been there since 1990. The water never breached the seawall, ever, until Hurricane Ian. And since Hurricane Ian, it's breached 3 times. So we're dealing with a different kind of impact from these storms. And if we rely on our outdated infrastructure to handle the influx of stormwater, we're going to be in a bad situation. So I think it's absolutely necessary to make it a priority. That is one of the main reasons I'm running. I'm fiscally responsible, and I think to take care of a almost $1 billion project, which would be the largest financial project that the city's ever taken on, not to mention all the logistics of it, it's of utmost importance.
Question number 5. How would you define the dividing line between the roles of city council members and city staff when running the city? Describe measures you would recommend to prevent micromanagement and ensure each function operates within its proper scope as outlined in the city charter.
I've talked a lot during my campaign about we need to get more effective council meetings. And that's not just because I don't want to sit through an 8-hour, 10-hour meeting in the city council chambers. City council meetings are the only time that city council business can take place. So when you waste time in those meetings, you're wasting more than just time of the public, time of staff, and you're wasting not to mention the financial cost with all of those people involved in the meetings, but you also have a lost cost of what you could be taking care of. So when you don't address issues in meetings, the cost of that exponentially goes higher because you're delaying those projects and decisions to further points in the future. Micromanagement, to me, is a major issue that needs to be addressed. I've talked about this over and over again, but I'd much rather have council dealing with important issues like stormwater infrastructure than talking about what restaurants on Fifth Avenue, how many outside seating chairs that they have.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. You have 2 minutes to summarize.
Okay, 2 minutes to summarize. As I've talked about, I really care about the city. I've grown up here. Everything that I'm currently doing is involved in the city. My wife works at Naples High School. I'm raising my family here in the city. We've lived in the city for 20 plus years in our home. Getting involved at a local level is very important to me, and I want to help make a difference and get council back on track to focus on the key issues that affect us all as residents.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Please exit through the door there. Great. Next, please welcome Scott Schultz. Okay. Great. Welcome, Scott. Please tell us why you're the right choice.
Because I live in the same building as you do. Thank you. My name is Scott Schultz, and I'm running for City Council. I currently serve on the Planning Advisory Board, and that's been quite an illuminating experience. And I want to commend, I believe the mayor's in the audience. Thank you, Mayor. And also the chairman of the Collier County Coastal Storm Risk Management Ad Hoc Advisory Committee. Yesterday I spent 3 hours at Pelican Bay Services District negotiating with them about the dredging, the remanagement of the dune, rebuilding of the dunes, and the mangroves, all nature-based. And we finally have a seat at the table with them. So I'm pleased to announce that here, so we benefit from that. Thank you.
Okay, all right, let's begin the interview. How would you ensure that the interests and concerns of all Naples neighborhoods are fairly considered in council decision-making? Explain how you would balance the needs of different neighborhoods.
Well, I'd like to point out right now is that there isn't much balance. There's nobody serving on city council north of the golf course at the Four Seasons. Nobody on council at all from this area. This area is unrepresented, taxation without representation. It's a big city. When I was the chairman of the Collier County situation with the Army Corps, I visited every HOA and every Kiwanis Club and every Rotary Club in the county. So I've gotten around, I see it, I know it, but first things first is we have to, if this election goes a certain way, we're going to have 3 residents from one community. And I think that that's difficult, but at the same time, if you don't run and get people actively involved here, that's why I'm running, because we need some representation here.
Great. Number 2, how would you collaborate with the Collier County Commission and staff to minimize the negative impacts on Naples?
This is one of my pet peeves, is it seems like the city of Naples doesn't have very many allies outside of the city governmentally. Our county board of commissioners, I'm friendly with them because I was appointed by them. And there were 97 people applied to be on the Coastal Storm Commission, and I was the one selected by Commissioner Kowal, Commissioner McDaniel. I'm friends with these personal friends and political friends. Now, I think we need to be far more insistent on pursuing positive dialogue with our county commissioners. While we don't always agree with them on things, I sure don't on development issues, I do believe that having good rapport and good relations with our neighboring governmental body makes sense. Likewise, we don't have very many friends in our delegation to Tallahassee, our state rep, our state senator, our congressman, Byron Donalds. I'm friends with all these guys, so I think you have to have cordial relationships. I'm a relationship guy and believe that the first step is the very best step. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3, explain how you would work toward implementing the priorities identified in the Naples Comprehensive Plan, specifically maintaining the small town feel and preserving the green jewel. Outline practical measures you would recommend to maintain Naples' unique character and environmental assets.
I saw you at one of the 2045 events. I went to both of them, and there was nobody at the tables I was at that could define what the green jewel is. I think it's more of a hope, and Naples is such a beautiful community, but unfortunately sometimes we lose track with all the development that's come. And I look at the Naples Beach Club, what was there and what replaced it. Naples Beach Club was a very serious local hangout. This place local people could go to, they could afford drinks and a bite. That's gone. Now, while the Four Seasons is very nice, it's a whole different vibe over there now than from before. Likewise, at 3rd Street, behind the Tommy Bahama location, the hotel there. Now, these were done by councils past, but they finally got done under this point in time. I think the whole character of 3rd Street and where the farmers market is there has changed. That's got plopped right in the middle of Old Naples. And those folks have to deal with it now. The trees that were uprooted. I'm afraid if we continue to allow the developers to run this town, we're not going to have a small town left. And I don't want this place to become Miami West.
Thank you. Number 4, how should the city prioritize projects related to essential resiliency infrastructure, considering the significant and rapidly increasing costs? What funding approaches would you recommend to ensure necessary improvements can be made in a fiscally responsible way?
That's a good one. I think if we had better relations with our State House and Senate delegations in Tallahassee and had a presence with them, meeting with them at least once a month, and have a good dialogue instead of cursing at them, I think it all goes down to our inability to develop good relationships with those who govern with us. And to me, there's a lot of money sloshing around in Tallahassee for all sorts of different places in the state. Why is it that Naples doesn't get much of any of that? To me, that's a frustration second to none, is we don't have good rapport with our state rep, our state senator. We simply don't. And that is something, Yvette Benaroche, Lauren Mello is going to be the next state senator. She'll be replacing Kathleen Pasadomo. In fact, we live in Bay Point, and we had Lauren Mello and Dan Kowal in one time. I believe you may have attended that. And so I have been bringing in people. I have Bill McDaniel in, a number of people that I've brought in just as a Charlie Tuna, a regular citizen, to show the residents of Bay Point and Naples Cave, for example, of what it's like to have the people that make our decisions for us, that are running us, that they can see where we live, get a context. I've brought over a couple county commissioners and took them up to our apartment and let them see how the water interconnects. I'm the only, people talk about resiliency. I live on the water. The Gulf to my left, Clam Bay to my forward, the canals at Seagate and Venetian Bay. You know where we live. And that is resiliency. When the county announced they were forming the board, I got a phone call from them. There were a lot of big hitters in the city that were wanting that position. I happened to get it, and from the first day, all I did is I went and met with HOA presidents around the city, and I've learned that sometimes the HOA leadership may not always be in tune with the residents per se, and so that experience has shown me how to get around town and how to get things done in a positive way.
Thank you. Number 5, how would you define the dividing line between the roles of council members and city staff when running the city? Describe measures you would recommend to prevent micromanagement and ensure that each function operates within its proper scope as outlined in the city charter.
It takes a lot of thought, but not really. The closest equation people you might have is like a board of directors of a corporation and the CEO, although government and business, ne'er the twain shall meet. But I think there's a role in an ability for the council to not delve into the day-to-day operations of the city. That's why we have a city manager and we have department heads. On the PAB, Planning Advisory Board, I get a packet in the mail once a month. We meet second Wednesday, I believe. In any event, I receive that, and there's an individual on staff, the planning staff, whose name is there that has written a review from the staff's perspective. And so I always take it into account. I read generally the summary first, staff's recommendation second, and then the other information. I rarely take time to call the individual unless there's something I feel is unclear in what they have presented to me as the staff's viewpoint. So I try not to bother anybody because they have a job to do. So I would think that the city manager's role is one to ride roughshod over that's a bad term, to ride herd on the people that are actually working within the city bureaucracy and the city government. So stay out of their way and they'll get the job done. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Number 6, describe your approach to enhancing both the effectiveness and the efficiency of Naples City Council. What specific strategies or processes would you recommend to help council function more productively and achieve better outcomes for the community?
Boy, anybody here watch a city council meeting on TV?
I do.
Well, I would use an egg timer. Nobody, 5 minutes. If you can't get your point across in 5 minutes, you tell the public you get 3 minutes to speak your piece. And yet they go on. And a couple members in particular, they cannot introduce themselves in under 5 minutes. So I think the ability for people to become more concise and direct instead of circuitous in how they talk, there's a problem. And there were times when people on council fell asleep. How can that happen? Because some of these meetings, 12, 13, 14 hours, that's a difficult slog for sure. So I think that the most part is keep people make them less, get them to say what's on their mind and get it done quickly, to the point. In my business of managing money, My job was to be on and off the phone in under a minute, imparting information, getting information, and I got a report card every month. It's called a statement. You all have investments. You receive a statement every month. If it goes up, you're always happy. If it goes down, you're generally unhappy. But I would get a report card, so I understand accountability. And this situation here sometimes is the accountability seems to be too diffused.
Great. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Please summarize.
It's time to, we're at an inflection point here, and new blood's needed. We're losing 2 resident advocates. My campaign theme, slogan, whatever you want to be, is residents first. It's on my lawn signs. It's on every piece of literature. We need to have some help for Mayor Heitman. We're losing Beth Hutchison, Beth Petronoff, excuse me, and Terry Hutchison, who I find are residents first. And I'd like to be able to help fill that and help Mayor Heitman take over things here and try to keep the residents first and foremost. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, Helen.
Thank you, Scott. Great to see you. Please exit through that door. Please welcome Sally Peterson. Good morning, Sally. So nice to finally meet you in person. Good morning. Please tell us why you're the right choice.
Why I'm the right choice? Well, I am the right choice. Because. Thank you. Well, first let me introduce myself. I'm Sally Peterson. I've been a resident of Naples for 4 years. My husband and I had been visiting Naples for over a decade prior to that. And coming from Michigan, I mean, we were attracted by the warm air and the sunshine and the beaches and all the amenities Naples has to offer. And so when we got down here, Tim was really on the retirement track. I have a background in civic leadership, and I was just not ready to stop working yet. And so, you know, I had a 30-year career that was in the public sector, private sector, and the nonprofit sector. And I must say the role that gave me the most joy was when I was a city council member in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And for me, you know, why I'm the best candidate, I think I am the true public servant. My father was an Episcopal priest, and I grew up in a family that was very community focused. My values of public service are really founded on the belief that resident voices don't just matter, but should be an intentional part of the city council agenda. And so that's why, and when in my private sector career, I worked as a customer satisfaction consultant and also worked for companies that were very customer-led, customer-focused. So by translation, I see residents of Naples as customers of the city. We pay a lot of money to be here, and we expect a lot in terms of services in return. And so that's why when I go door to door, I ask residents in every single neighborhood, and I think I've hit almost every neighborhood at this point, what are your priorities? If I were lucky enough to be elected and have that honor and privilege, what is your priorities that I could focus on? And what I hear sort of forms the pillars of my campaign: countering overdevelopment and its consequences, resiliency, making sure the city's improvements, there's a lot of flood mitigation improvements going on downtown. We need to make sure that they reach every single neighborhood. And finally, defending not just home rule. We hear a lot about the need to defend home rule, but also defending Naples. I believe that we need more investment in public safety personnel and public safety infrastructure.
Thank you. Let's begin the interview. How would you ensure that the interests and concerns of all Naples neighborhoods are fairly considered in council decision-making? Explain how you would balance the needs of different neighborhoods.
Thank you. Good question. So as I said, the premise of public service is making sure every resident has a voice. And I have 2 initiatives, should I be elected to city council, that I would like to bring forward, and both are very much neighborhood focused. The first are the neighborhood priority plans. We're going through a comprehensive planning process right now, and the statement of work does not include neighborhood-specific priority plans. In fact, These are the priority plans from the last comprehensive review in 1998. I've been carrying them around with me because we have a lot of events going to, but they have not been updated yet in this century. And what I would want to do is begin the initiative to make sure and the plans are clear, they're concise, they're neighborhood specific, they include the history and the culture of each neighborhood, and they set the stage for each neighborhood to have a say in the look and feel of their particular neighborhood. And they need to be brought back into the current comprehensive planning process. The second thing is I would like to initiate a resident city resiliency task force. And the way this would work is, the way I envision it, it would be chaired by the vice mayor and the Dr. George, who you may have heard of. He's the new director of critical infrastructure. He is our resiliency czar. They would be the two city representatives, and then each neighborhood would have 2 or 3 people that know best what happens in their neighborhood when flooding happens. And so neighborhood-specific protocols would have a direct voice to the city, both city council and city staff, on making improvements in their neighborhood.
Great. Number 2, how would you collaborate with the Collier County Commission and staff to minimize the negative impacts on Naples?
So I think there's sort of a short-term and long-term answer to this. And I think in the short term, we may not be able to control it, but we need to prepare for it. So, for example, the building at Davis Square, that's just outside the city limits, but there are going to be thousands of new residents there that are going to put pressure on the infrastructure in Naples. I've been over those bridges. I've talked to people in Oyster Bay. What is that going to do to congestion and traffic? They're advertising the Metropolitan O's walk to town or walk to Naples, and those bridges may need to be rethought or re-engineered for the additional pedestrian traffic, cycling traffic, and motor traffic. Also, Clam Pass Cove across the street, the water park we've all been hearing about. I think this is something, as a city collective, relentless advocacy is something that I hope will prevent that from actually happening. And long term, I think it's baby steps in terms of working with Collier County commissioners. I mean, sunshine laws prevent us from being able to meet as groups, but I think it's time for some fresh voices and some fresh leadership and a fresh start in building those relationships.
Great, thank you. Number 3, explain how you would work toward implementing the priorities identified in the Naples Comprehensive Plan, specifically maintaining a small town feel and preserving the green jewel. Outline practical measures you would recommend to maintain Naples' unique character and environmental assets.
So, yes, as I said, we were attracted to the charming character of Naples. Every house, we would drive up and down. The kids were playing volleyball on the beach, and just every house was different and seemed to have its own character and story to tell. In terms of what I would do specifically to preserve small town feel and the green jewel, I have 4 ideas. The first is that we need to thoroughly audit our own codes for density and setbacks. We need to make sure they're clear, concise, and not open to misinterpretation. And so overdevelopment happens, and sometimes variants are given because there's inconsistent interpretation of what our codes say. So they need to be cleaned up. And then we need to defend them. Second, I'm coming forward, and I've actually talked to the mayor about this a little bit. I'd like to I think the city should provide property owners incentives to redevelop or rebuild in ways that exceed resiliency standards. For example, if a homeowner was going to build to a larger setback or install a water garden or a water basin, they should get and that takes an investment in property, but those residents should get a reduction in their water rates. I talked about, I think the other 2 ideas in terms of protecting look and feel and charm and character are the neighborhood priority plans. Again, neighborhoods should have a say in what the future generation is going to inherit in their properties. And then the resident resiliency task force, as I said before, that is something that, again, every resident, every neighborhood will have a voice and an advocate in city council.
Great. Number 4, how should the city prioritize projects related to essential resiliency infrastructure, considering the significant and rapidly increasing cost? What funding approaches would you recommend to ensure necessary improvements can be made in a fiscally responsible way?
So the city has a 2025 draft resiliency plan, and the first thing is I think it needs to be adopted. I know parts of it have been adopted, but it hasn't been fully adopted. And what I like about this plan is that it has offshore, onshore, and inland components to it, and it's ambitious and it's innovative, and it needs to be fiscally prudent as well. And I think the city made the appropriate decision for a gradual increase in water rates to help pay for it. There's also a program called the Resilience Florida, which the city has already gotten some funding from. It's a grant program, so cities can do studies and make improvements to help resiliency. I think that should be, I don't want the city to lose sight that as a source of funding as well. And the obvious resources are federal ones, and I'm not sure what to say about that. I know that FEMA, I mean, we've already gotten FEMA money for the pier, which is awesome, but FEMA and NOAA, who are big grant providers, have been defunded, and I'm cautiously optimistic that future leadership will make sure that those two sources are funded again.
Great. Number 5, how would you define the dividing line between the roles of council members and city staff when running the city? Describe measures you would recommend to prevent micromanagement and ensure that each function operates within its proper scope as outlined in the city charter.
I was really happy to see this question on the list because I think this is an example where some of my experience on Ann Arbor City Council will translate well. I was on the council administration committee, which the city of Naples doesn't have, but we were very clear to define the difference between what city council does and what the city, in that case, city administrator does. And the way I see it is the city council are the policy makers, and the city administration, the staff, are the policy implementers. And we had a cardinal rule in Ann Arbor, and that was, thou shalt not meddle in the business of the city manager. And that is something that I think we need to bring forward. Also, I think in terms of the specific roles, council would be more effective if they stuck to a priority list. The latest priority dashboard, I understand, is from March of 2024, and it has 27 items on it. So if you have 27 priorities, you really have no priorities at all. And so that needs some clarity. I think we also need to trust staff to make the right decisions when it comes to providing data. And again, we need to hold the city manager accountable for the decisions that he or she, he in this case, makes. And that the city manager reports to city council, and the city council needs to hold him accountable for the decisions he makes in the staff by providing transparency and clarity of data-driven decisions.
Great, thank you. Number 6, describe your approach to enhancing both the effectiveness and the efficiency of Naples City Council. What specific strategies or processes would you recommend to help council function more productively and achieve better outcomes for the community?
Yeah, I feel like this question is very related to the previous one.
Yes.
So I think if meetings become more efficient, council can be more effective in the community. Yes, the meetings are too long and they tend to be mired in a lot of detail. I think city council should take more control of the agenda. What I see here in Naples is that the administration, the city manager, brings the agenda forward, and about 85% of the time, city council votes on items on the agenda 7-0. And they spend a lot of time talking about things they already agree about. And so I think a lot of those easy items that, maybe they belong, maybe not easy items, but items that are less controversial, that are more common sense, belong in the consent agenda and don't need to be discussed at the table. In terms of effectiveness, one thing I've noticed that's different here than in Ann Arbor is that city council members don't typically bring their own resolutions to the table. And what I would like to do, and again, we don't have a city council administration focus here. I would like to create one in Naples because the effectiveness comes when a city council member brings their own agenda items, and those agenda items should be informed by the residents. And so we'll be more effective if we're bringing real issues to the table that impact residents directly rather than administrative things that staff should be able to take care of.
Thank you, Sally. Please summarize. 2 minutes.
Okay, so you're all very patient here. You're going to listen to 8 candidates today. And so there are 8 candidates, 3 seats. And I'm going to tell you I am one clear choice for Naples City Council. I am different from the other candidates in 3 ways. One, when I say residents' voices really matter, I really mean it because I've actually put those words into action in my professional career and my public sector career. I've spent years and years and years listening to stakeholders, whether they be residents or whether they be customers, and translating what I hear into plans and into priorities. Second, I'm the only city council member talking about a resident city resiliency task force, and the only one talking about putting priority plans back into the comprehensive plans. And finally, well, I may not have lived here as long as some of the other candidates. I'm very invested in here. I'm dedicated to public service. This is not politics. This is about good governance and fiscal stewardship. I bring a fresh voice, a fresh perspective, and a fresh start in building relationships with the city and with the county and with the state. I'm independent. I don't take any PAC money. I don't take any money from developers, and I will be a relentless advocate for every resident in every neighborhood of Naples. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you. Very nice to meet you. Please exit through the door there. Careful. And please welcome Ted Blankenship to the stage. Careful, careful. Ted? Welcome, Ted. Please tell us why you're the right choice. You can sit, unless you want to stand. But.
Hello, everyone. My name's Ted Blankenship. I'm running for Naples City Council again. I served on the City Council from April 2020 to April 2024. We accomplished quite a bit during those 4 years, tackling some of the challenges from the growth that the city experienced before 2020, dealing with stormwater infrastructure and some of the challenges of building development in the city. I'm running again because we still have a lot of the same issues. In fact, some of them may have gotten worse. Certainly when Ian passed through, it was a big eye-opener. And we're having bigger storms, more frequent storms, and we have a lot of challenges that we need to address with our stormwater infrastructure and becoming more resilient, able to recover faster when we do have a storm, and also preventing the damage that might happen from a storm. So I'm running again to help address those issues, and particularly how we might pay for them, because you can imagine those are quite expensive and the costs go up every year, and we need a good workable strategy and prioritization plan to get things done.
Thank you, Ted. Let's get right into the questions. Number 1, how would you ensure that the interests and concerns of all Naples neighborhoods are fairly considered in council decision making? Explain how you would balance the needs of different neighborhoods.
As I did the first time on City Council, I'm engaged in a lot of different neighborhoods in Naples. I live in the Moorings, only a couple of miles from here. I'm out in all the neighborhoods quite frequently. I had a Facebook page when I was on council before, and I would start that back up again. I talk to and listen to practically anybody who wants to talk about issues in the city or who has questions about the city. And particularly when we had problems come up or challenges come up, I would reach out to the HOA leaders and find out what they thought about them and get their input. So I didn't just wait for input to come to me. I would go out and seek it if need be to get their input and their feedback on the issues that we had. It is sometimes complex to balance the needs across the city. I try to do a prioritization based on the risks, the urgency, the needs of the community, and I think we did a decent job of that when I was on council before in addressing some of the key concerns of the different neighborhoods, particularly like in the GSAC area. When I first got on council, you may recall there was a big lawsuit outstanding on the Venetian Village seawalls. I got involved in that issue and found out why the attorney was holding up negotiations on that lawsuit, and we got the lawsuit settled and started working on fixing the seawalls. We're not done yet. There's still some sections that need to be rebuilt, but at least the worst parts have been addressed. Likewise with the trees, you may recall when the trees got butchered along Seagate Avenue and how terrible that was. The next day I got involved with our city attorney and the streets department and found out why the resistance to undergrounding utilities was holding things up, and resolved the right-of-way issues with the help of my colleagues on city council so that that underground project could get back on track.
Great, thank you. Number 2, how would you collaborate with the Collier County Commission and staff to minimize the negative impacts on Naples?
That's a big challenge for us. Fortunately, our city staff and the county staff have a pretty good working relationship with each other. You may recall during Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Ian how the county stepped in and helped us with debris removal, and then soon after the storms they helped us with beach renourishment, rebuilding the dunes to try to prevent future flooding and future issues. So fortunately we have a good relationship at the staff level. Personally, I have a good relationship with most of the county commissioners. I know 4 of them pretty well, and I'm working on the 5th one. So I have a good relationship with those county commissioners, and that helps with the dialogue that we have, and we can work together. I would encourage my fellow council members to also have similar relationships. I know some of them do already, and some of them can work on those better, so we can have a more effective dialogue on some of our shared issues like water pollution in Naples Bay, the stormwater infrastructure needs that we have in the city and that they have in the county, where we could collaborate on those.
Thank you. Explain how you would work toward implementing the priorities identified in the Naples Comprehensive Plan, specifically maintaining the small town feel and preserving the green jewel. Outline practical measures you would recommend to maintain Naples' unique character and environmental assets.
Sure. First of all, I would stick to the Naples vision that was formulated back in the 2018-2019 timeframe and partially led to our election, my election in 2020, when the residents seemed to be upset that city was not following the vision of the residents. So they wanted some new people to get involved and make that happen. And I was very happy to get involved and be able to help with that. Not only protecting the trees and the green space that we have, the parks that we have, taking care of them, but really focusing on the environmental issues. For instance, our stormwater lakes. We have over 20 lakes in the city that collect and retain and treat stormwater before it's ultimately transmitted through the system to the Gulf. Before 2020, only 1 of those storm lakes had ever been cleaned by the city. Since then, we've cleaned up 8. We really made it a priority to focus on cleaning up those lakes because they're a key part of the stormwater treatment system. And we have plans to do the rest of them as well. We want to get to all of them. Particularly here in this area, at Swan Lake, we've been working on a pilot treatment, a biological treatment to clean up that lake. And next up is Devil's Lake. Colonnade Lake and Suzanne Lake also need to be addressed. Those feed into the Moorings Bay and Venetian Bay, which impact all of us. A couple of other things that we can and should do, I believe, is implement the backflow preventers throughout all of our bays. We started, there's 80-something outflow pipes into the moorings and Venetian Bay system from Park Shore, GSAC, the moorings, Seagate area. We've gotten about 25 or 26 of those installed now, so we still have a long way to go. I'd like to see that completed. If we can keep stormwater, when a storm passes through the Gulf, from coming back into our neighborhoods, that would be a huge step towards saving all of our environmental spaces. I also think and believe we need to rapidly address seawall heights. I don't think our seawall heights are high enough in the moorings Bay system, the Naples Bay system, and even in sections along the Gulf of Mexico. I know this is going to be a huge exercise, a complex exercise to involve the scientists, the naturalists, the neighborhoods, the builders, and trying to decide how much they should be raised and how we're going to accomplish it and how we're going to pay for it. But we can't keep delaying, we can't keep kicking that can down the street. We need to get going on it. I just know my home was flooded during Hurricane Ian. We had about 6 inches of nasty storm water in our house. If the seawalls had been just 6 inches or a foot higher, we would have been saved that trouble, and as well as many of my neighbors would have been saved that trouble. And going through a reconstruction like that is awful. I hope most of you didn't have to do that. I'm sure some of you did. But I would like to prevent that from happening again for our residents.
Mm-hmm. Number 5, how would you define the dividing line between the roles of council members and city staff when running the city? Describe measures you would recommend to prevent micromanagement and ensure that each function operates within its proper scope as outlined in the city charter.
I come from the business world. I was involved in a lot of corporations, public and private, and to me there's a great similarity between how a corporate board works with the CEO and how the city council can and should work with the city manager and staff. So just as in a corporation, the investors elect the board members who then provide priorities, policies, guidance, feedback to the CEO. I think we should have a similar approach in city government where the residents, you all, us all, elect the city council members who then represent the residents and then work with the city manager and his or her staff on setting what policies should be, providing oversight, providing priorities, reviewing the budget, and things like that, so that there's a good balance of skills and feedback and input to the process. I do recognize city government is a little bit different than corporate life. We have a lot of state laws, Sunshine Act, Public Records Act. There are a lot of things that we have to comply with as well that corporations don't have to do. So that does add some time and additional layer of responsibility for city council.
Mm-hmm. Number 6, describe your approach to enhancing both the effectiveness and efficiency of Naples City Council. What specific strategies or processes would you recommend to help the council function more productively and achieve better outcomes for the community?
Thanks. First of all, I would insist that we follow Robert's Rules of Order. We're supposed to. That's in our ordinances, but it isn't usually followed. That would make meetings run much smoother. Also, if I, and to the extent I can, hold my fellow members accountable to do your homework. Ask your questions ahead of time. Get the data, talk to residents, get the input ahead of time. That will make the meetings go much better. Ask the small questions of staff ahead of time and save the big questions for the meeting, the things that you think make a difference to the decision that's being discussed. I know when I was on council before, I always tried to meet with the relevant staff people ahead of time and ask them my questions ahead. And I would warn them, I'm going to ask this question in the council meeting so that they could be prepared. I don't like playing gotcha. I don't like trying to scare them or intimidate them in a public setting, because we're just trying to get the information out there to make a good decision. And to the extent that the staff can be prepared for the debate, the discussion, the data that's needed, the questions that are coming, it will make for better decisions.
Great. Thank you, Ted. Please summarize why you're the right candidate.
Thanks for your engagement. Thanks for being here today. I believe my prior experience on council, how I worked before on those 4 years, my finance background, my business background, can make a big difference in how council works so that we can make better decisions. You know, we have big issues from an environmental standpoint, stormwater infrastructure, protecting home rule, and to the extent that we can work together more effectively with resident input from you guys, we can make the city better. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ted. Thank you. Please exit through the door there. Over there. Great. Thank you. Please welcome to the stage Councilperson Ray Chrisman. There's Ray. Here's Ray. Great. Right? Welcome, Ray.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you. Please tell us why you're the right choice.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank GSAC for sponsoring this forum and thank all of you for coming. Great to see so many people in this room. I'm Ray Chrisman. I've had the privilege of serving you on City Council since 2019. When I first ran for council, I did so for one simple reason. I disagreed at that time with many of the city's policies, priorities, and actions. I thought we were off track and that we could do better. And I brought with me years of volunteer experience and decades of professional experience that was relevant to the job at City Council. It gave me perspective, I thought, on what we should do and how to do it. Both as a candidate and then later as a councilman, I've had three priorities. First, we needed to manage growth and development responsibly, according to our goals. We subsequently tightened criteria for variances and deviations and inscribed in our code our charter height limit. All development now approved for the last 5 years in our city has been within our code. Second, we needed to focus on protection of our environment, our beaches, our golf, our bays, our green space and parks, and make resiliency a top priority. Several months ago, Council adopted a resiliency plan, and the money to pay for it. We're the first government in Southwest Florida to do that. And third, I was a leader on Council that recognized we had a public safety crisis in our city, and it needed to be dealt with. I led the effort on Council to bring back competitive pay for our first responders and recruit outstanding new leadership to lead our police department. And I'm the only candidate in this election to have received the endorsement of the Naples Fraternal Order of Police, our local union. While there's always more to do, we made great progress in each of these areas to the benefit of all of our residents. Experience matters on City Council. Competency and good judgment matter on City Council. And working together to achieve real results matters. These are the qualities that I brought to my work here. I hope I can earn your vote on February 3rd. Thank you.
Let's go right into the questions, Ray. How would you ensure that the interest and concerns of all Naples neighborhoods are fairly considered in council decision-making? Explain how you would balance the needs of different neighborhoods.
I think we all know that city councilors are elected at large by all the voters in Naples. So our job when elected is to represent every neighborhood in the city and to address their needs. Now, clearly, that has not always been the case with some members of council. And some have been perceived to have had alliances or predispositions to a particular neighborhood in HOA. I think my record since I've been on council is to demonstrate the opposite of that, as I've reached out from the first day to all areas of the city. And let me use Gulf Shore Boulevard North and Park Shore as an example. I forged relationships with leaders at GSAC and Park Shore soon after I was first elected. I was a leader on council to move forward the long-delayed Venetian Bay Seawalls project, which now involves a $10 million investment to repair those seawalls, some of it completed, the rest in the next 3 to 4 years. All that money has been budgeted by the city. We've also prioritized Swan Lake and Devil's Lake for cleanup and restoration. And I've worked with the GSAC board, as many of you know, to organize and moderate an annual water forum here, and we're planning another one for this spring. So the job of city government does not have to be a zero-sum game where one neighborhood benefits and the other loses when you make decisions on the allocation of resources. If a councilor is truly representing all neighborhoods of the city, we can find ways to meet all of their priorities if we work hard enough and spend enough time doing so.
Thanks, Ray. How would you collaborate with the Collier County Commission and staff to minimize the negative impacts on Naples?
Well, first, just a piece of context. People in Naples talk often about overdevelopment and too much growth. But in my opinion, most of that growth is emanating from the county, not from inside of Naples. Over 1.5 million vehicles come into the city every week from the county. They come here with people in them to shop, to visit, to work, to recreate. 1.5 million vehicles a week in season. And Collier County zoning standards are quite different than the cities. If you, particularly when you look at what I call doorstep development, such as the Davis Triangle or the corner of 41 and Pine Ridge, where county and city lines meet, you see development occurring on the county side at a much higher height and density than you do in the city. Our city and county staffs work together very, very well on a day-to-day basis, which is very good. We have over 30 interlocal agreements between the city and county on everything from beach parking to water and sewer service delivery. But at the elected level, it's much harder for city elected officials to have an impact and influence on county elected leaders. City of Naples only makes up 5% of the voters in all of Collier County. So while I've had a positive working relationship with each of the county commissioners, and I think vice versa, there's limitations to what kind of influence you can provide. And in the final analysis, it's going to be Collier County voters who are going to have to, at some point, make up their minds that the growth and development occurring in the county is just too much and when they need to manage it better. And I personally feel, just following the news and talking to people, that that kind of backlash is slowly taking hold in Collier County.
Thank you, Ray. Number 3, explain how you would work toward implementing the priorities identified in the Naples Comprehensive Plan, specifically maintaining a small town feel and preserving the green jewel. Outline practical measures you would recommend to maintain Naples' unique character and environmental assets.
Well, as I'm sure, again, you know or have been told already today, we're in the midst of updating our comprehensive plan. The process has just started. We're gathering public input, and I encourage all of you to participate in that process. I think as part of this update, I think it's time for us to update our definitions of what small town feel means and what we knew and what green jewel means and what we need to do to protect and carry out those objectives. My list of practical measures that we should prioritize in the comp plan update to maintain our unique character, environmental assets are: number one, ensuring that we continually maintain and re-nourish our beaches to the highest standards. Our beach is our most important environmental and, frankly, economic asset. Number two, to have as a goal having a world-class city park system and determine what investments we need to achieve that. And right now, we're about to embark on a new city park master plan. Number three, to ensure that our network of over 20 stormwater retention lakes meet clean water standards as they discharge water into our Gulf, our bays, and the Gordon River. And finally, look for strategic opportunities to acquire and protect green space. Buying land in Naples, as we know, is very expensive, but I always point to the opportunity that we took advantage of with the Naples Beach Club to have donated to the city a conservation easement which protects in perpetuity 105 acres of green space at the hotel. Something I fought for starting when I first ran for council. I'm very proud of that we were able to achieve that. 105 acres of green space protected in perpetuity.
Thank you, Ray. Number four, how should the city prioritize projects related to essential resiliency infrastructure, considering the significant and rapidly increasing costs? What funding approaches would you recommend to ensure necessary improvements can be made in a fiscally responsible way?
Well, first, the good news is that we have a resiliency plan. It was just adopted by City Council a few months ago in the fall of last year. It's a plan that includes just under 40 different stormwater system upgrade projects costing an estimated $282 million and to be implemented over 20 years. We're the only government in Southwest Florida to have a resiliency plan. I'll say that again. The other good news is that we made the even tougher decision of figuring out how we were going to pay for this. We went to our stormwater fund, which has been well managed over time. We voted rate increases over the next 4 years, which when bonded will provide the money to pay for this. Much, but not all of the city is covered by this plan. We will need to identify additional investments and additional money to pay for it to be able to, over time, deal with the stormwater needs of the entire city. We made a good start, but Naples, like all coastal communities in Florida, are going to have to rely on other sources of funding, particularly state and federal, to meet all of our needs. And in addition, I want to make sure I point out that we had the foresight, even before this overall city plan was developed, to begin work on two other critical resiliency projects. The Gulf Shore Boulevard Beach Outfalls project, which is underway, as we all know, $100 million project, 70% of it funded by state and county sources, and then a project over in the design district in the CRA area on 10th Street and First Avenue South that will be, in the end, costing about $25 million that will reduce flooding in that area and help the businesses and residents in that area tremendously in the future.
Great, thanks. Number five, how would you define the dividing line between the roles of council members and city staff when running the city? Describe measures you would recommend to prevent micromanagement and ensure each function operates within its proper scope as outlined in the city charter.
Well, Naples has a council manager form of government. And way back in the day when I was in graduate school studying city planning and public administration, I learned that that's the most prevalent form of government, local government in our country. It separates the political and the administrative sides of government and can bring about more efficiency. In our city charter, the city manager is the CEO. That's what it says. And there is also a provision in our city charter called non-interference that prevents council members from intervening on hiring, on the hiring of personnel or other personnel matters. We all should know, those of us in city government, how this should work. Council sets policies, acts on decisions that are brought to us regarding land use or our budget, and the city manager and his or her staff carries out the day-to-day work of council and makes recommendations to council on those actions. But we also know that some current and past council members don't or won't recognize these lines and creep into micromanagement and worse. We have rules of procedure in the city charter to guide us, but the only real remedy is to elect individuals to city council who respect these complementary lines of authority and responsibility.
Thank you, Ray. Please summarize.
Well, thanks again to the Park Shore Association for sponsoring this forum and to all of you for attending. We know that Naples is experiencing pressures and challenges much greater than the past. This has been driven by our own growth and popularity as a destination, by the growth of Collier County, and what Mother Nature has been throwing at us. In my time on council, I'm proud of the accomplishments we have achieved in support of all our neighborhoods. We tightened our variance requirements, eliminated site plan deviations, inscribed in our code a charter height amendment to keep new development within our code. To protect our environment, we adopted a new stormwater ordinance and a summer ban on fertilizer, protected 105 acres of green space at the Naples Beach Club, and adopted a new resiliency plan. And we fixed our public safety crisis through competitive pay and benefits, new leadership, and more staffing. I'm proud of the leadership, the advocacy, and support I provided on each of these matters. I stand by my strong support of key community projects like the Naples NCH Heart Institute and the Gulf Shore Playhouse, and I also stand by my opposition to half-baked ideas like a development moratorium after Hurricane Ian and other ill-advised land use regulatory proposals. All this means that we need more than ever leaders on city council who bring the experience, the subject matter knowledge, and good judgment to keep us moving forward.
Thank you, Ray.
I hope I have the opportunity to serve you another 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Ray. And next up, please welcome Penny Taylor. Thank you. Welcome, Penny. Good to see you again. Please tell us why you're the right choice.
We don't know. We now start with my opening, correct?
Yes,
All right, thank you.
I think it's on.
Yes, you can hear me. Good.
Is it on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good.
Well, I'll start at the beginning. My name is Penny Taylor, and I'm asking for your vote on February the 3rd. I've called Naples home for 46 years. I founded my photographic company in 1983, and I've recorded the milestones of countless Naples families since then. My daughter was born in Naples Community Hospital and is a graduate of Naples High School. Naples isn't just where I live, it's where I've built my life and raised my family. I was elected to the Naples City Council in 2000 and served 10 years on that board, the last 2 as vice mayor. I was elected to the Board of County Commissioners in 2014, and I served 8 years as the District 4 County Commissioner, which included the City of Naples. For 18 years, I have worked on behalf of the City of Naples at the local and county level. I was asked to run for a seat on the Naples City Council because of the great concern regarding the fragmentation of the current council leadership regarding resilience. Frankly, folks, the train is off the track. The City of Naples is facing a $500 to $600 million price tag for stormwater infrastructure repairs. And this does not include the necessary road repairs and seawall replacement. Some City Council members are lumping the beach outfall project within these necessary improvements. But let's be clear, the beach stormwater outfall project that you can see in Old Naples is an environmental project that was formally demanded by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection in 2012. But here's what concerns me the most. Our current council leadership has alienated the very partners at the county, state, and federal level who could help us shoulder this burden. Let's look at what the council has done. They've rejected a $2.9 million FDOT grant, and they have declined FAA grants worth $8 to $9 million. This combative approach means Naples taxpayers will bear these massive costs alone, or critical resilience projects will be delayed indefinitely. This is exactly the wrong time for on-the-job training. Naples needs experienced leadership that knows how to build partnerships.
Thank you, Penny. Let's start the interview.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. First up, how would you ensure that the interests and concerns of all Naples neighborhoods are fairly considered in council decision-making? Explain how you would balance the needs of different neighborhoods.
The foundation of fair representation is doing your homework. You can't represent what you don't understand, and you can't understand without spending time in every neighborhood. I've walked through each neighborhood in Naples over the years, not just during campaign season. In January of last year, I systematically interviewed association presidents from each neighborhood, developing a detailed scorecard about specific resilience challenges and infrastructure needs. That groundwork gives me current, firsthand knowledge of what matters to each community. Here's the critical point. City council members are elected at large, not by district, and this means every decision must be considered through a citywide lens. When I'm evaluating any proposal, I ask, if I make this decision, how will it affect other neighborhoods, and how is it going to affect the city as a whole? This is where the balance happens, in the deliberation process itself. And this requires transparent communication and active public participation. This means making it easy for residents to engage through neighborhood meetings, accessible public hearings, responsive communication, and clear explanations of how decisions are made.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Number two, how would you collaborate with the Collier County Commission and staff to minimize the negative impacts on Naples?
This collaboration should be governmental body to have lasting effect. Growth outside the borders of the City of Naples have lasting effect on the city, good or bad. Traffic concerns, health and safety problems, demands on the City of Naples infrastructure and utilities are valid considerations and should be addressed before projects are approved. Right now, your City Council is very reluctant to go before elected bodies. But the City of Naples needs a seat at the table early in the approval process. Just to be clear, staff talks to staff and City Council talks with the County Commission. To be effective, this process should be followed. There is a phenomenon called extraterritorial jurisdiction, where the ability of a municipality to have limited jurisdiction over its shared borders is enshrined in law. This AJT should be explored by the City of Naples in partnership with the county. This would bring the City of Naples into the approval process, but until each EJT is codified, if it is ever codified, developing a strong relationship with the county will go far to promote positive collaboration in the future.
Thank you. Number 3, explain how you would work toward implementing the priorities identified in the Naples Comprehensive Plan, specifically maintaining a small town feel and preserving the green jewel. Outline practical measures you would recommend to maintain Naples' unique character and environmental assets.
Let me start by acknowledging the challenge. The small town feel reserves to a quality of life, walkable neighborhoods, accessible government, a sense that you know your community and your voice matters. This is increasingly difficult to maintain when seasonal population surges and creates a big city pace and congestion. But this isn't impossible. I've seen it work right here on Gulf Shore. Your neighborhood association has been extraordinarily effective, advocating with the city council, protecting the boulevard's characters, and creating collective pride in your green space and beach walk as the backyard for every resident. That's where the model works. This is where the model works. Here are the practical measures I would champion. Strengthen neighborhood engagement. Regular communication, responsiveness to concerns, and genuine two-way communication. I have working relationships with our legislative delegation, county commissioners, and state agencies, and those relationships mean access to funding opportunities and technical assistance that can dramatically reduce the burden on Naples taxpayers. And second, we need a comprehensive infrastructure matrix. Right now, residents are hearing $500 to $600 million without understanding what that includes, when it is needed, or how we're going to pay for it. That breeds distrust and makes it impossible to build support for necessary solutions. So let's have a plan. What infrastructure improvements are needed, the timeline for each project, funding sources for each component, and cost-sharing opportunities. This matrix will become our roadmap for future conversations with both taxpayers and funding partners. Transparency about challenges and strategically building public trust is the answer to bring us fiscal help. We have to resist the standards to weaken this. We have to resist the standards to avoid a frank conversation of where we stand and what we need to do.
Thank you. That's a great lead in to the next question. How should the city prioritize projects related to essential resiliency infrastructure, considering the significant and rapidly increasing cost? What funding approaches would you recommend to ensure necessary improvements can be made in a fiscally responsible way?
Long-term financial sustainability requires strategic planning and strong partnerships. We can't have one without the other. The single most important step is restoring partnerships. We have already rejected a $2.9 FDOT grant for South Gulf Drive improvements. We've declined an FAA safety grant worth $8 to $9 million. This combative approach means Naples taxpayers are shouldering costs that could be shared with state and federal partners. That is fiscally irresponsible, and it must change immediately. I have working relationships with our legislative delegation, county commissioners, and state agency leaders. Those relationships mean to have access to funding opportunities and technical assistance, which will dramatically reduce the burden on the Naples taxpayers. Third, we must pursue funding pathways, grants, and appropriations. We must strategic bond. In some projects, we have to bond them. And in some areas, in county partnerships, the stormwater doesn't respect boundaries. Where our infrastructure connects to county systems, cost sharings makes physical sense. And I know how to structure those agreements because I've done it. Also, one area that we might want to consider is the surtax. Naples might explore an optional sales tax so tourists who enjoy our beaches also help fund the infrastructure that protects them. This would require, number one, a vote of the taxpayers. Number two, specific projects identified with detailed costs that do not change. Three, transparent revenue projections. And four, a citizen oversight committee to monitor collection and spending. And then, I guess really the most important, a firm sunset date. This tax ends when projects are completed. I want to be clear, I would never support a sales tax without these rigorous protections and voter approval. We are facing $500 to $600 million in stormwater challenges. We can reduce that burden on Naples taxpayers through strategic partnerships. I've secured millions in outside funding for Naples during my time on the County Commission, and I'm ready to go to work for the City of Naples again.
Thank you. Number 5, how would you define the dividing line between the roles of council members and city staff when running the city? Describe measures you would recommend to prevent micromanagement and ensure that each function operates within its proper scope as outlined in the city charter.
I'm glad you're asking that question, because I've heard troubling concerns from business owners and residents on how the city council is interfering with the process. Again and again, as I'm on talking to folks, they're saying, what is going on? I can't get anything done. The dividing line is actually quite clear in the city charter. Council sets the policy, the city manager implements that policy. Council members should not be directing staff, countermanding administrative decisions, or inserting themselves into day-to-day operation. That's the city manager's prerogative, and that's his job. Here's a concrete example of the proper process. If a council member has concerns about how a policy is being implemented, they bring that concern to the city manager. Then the city manager investigates and responds. If the council member believes the policy itself needs to change, then they bring it to the full council for discussion and potential action. What shouldn't happen is a council member calling a staff member directly to question their decision or demand changes. Unfortunately, that's not what's happening now. I've spoken with business owners who describe an unpredictable approval process where staff decisions are being second-guessed or overridden by individual council members. I've heard from people who work with the city staff that there's genuine concern about the political interference in professional decisions, and this creates a chilling effect.
Thank you, Penny. You have 2 minutes to summarize.
I would like to thank GSAC for hosting this important forum, and to Helen McGrath, who followed up and answered many questions and never let me forget a deadline. Thank you, Helen. You have the patience of a saint. 46 years ago, I chose Naples. I built my business here and raised my family here. I fostered nearly 50 children here and volunteered in every neighborhood, cast my ballot in local elections for decades. Yes, I've served as an elected official before, 10 years on city council and 2 years as vice mayor and 8 years on the county commission. I've chaired the Metropolitan Planning Organization and the Tourist Development Council, but I'm certainly not a lifelong politician. I'm your neighbor and your friend, and I'm genuinely passionate about giving back to my hometown, this town that has given me so much. Experience is what separates me from the rest of the candidates for Naples City Council, and I have a track record you can count on. In a full field of 8 candidates for this election on February the 3rd, I am the only candidate that brings 18 years of public service to this job, and this means that I will start to work on day 1. Naples faces critical challenges that demand immediate attention and experienced leadership. I have leadership that has been proven in the government arena, and I will be honored with your vote on February the 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you very much, Penny. Thank you. How time flies. We're up, our final candidate for City Council is now up, and that's John Langley. Please exit to the right, Penny. Please welcome John Langley. No, just on that side. Welcome. Welcome, John.
How are you?
Good. Please tell us why you're the right choice.
Well, I'm the right choice. First of all, hi, I'm John Langley, I'm running for City Council. I've been in Naples since 2002. My wife's been in town since 1971. So all of our kids grew up here, went to school here. And things have changed, and not necessarily for the better. I can sit here and say, I remember when, and she could say, I remember when, but the fact is that we're growing as a town, we're modernizing, but we're behind the 8 ball. We've got some issues that have come to light because of Ian, which kind of changed everything. We've got a stormwater system that's basically obsolete that needs to get fixed all over the city, not just in Old Naples. And we've got to find a way to get that paid for sooner than later. Problem's not going away. The growth in the county is putting a lot of strain on the city, and we really need to do something about it now. And I know there's a plan, a 20-year plan, but I don't think we can afford to wait 20 years to address the issue. We need to do something about it now. Just a little about me. I graduated from University of Florida in 1982 with an accounting degree. I passed my CPA test in 1983 and started my own CPA firm in 1988. And I ran it. It was in Jacksonville, Florida. That's where I'm from. And I moved to Naples in 2002, and it was really hard to kind of commute back and forth between here and Jacksonville, so I sold it to the 4 other CPAs I had working for me at the time. In 1991, I started another company, a medical transcription service. It was located in Jacksonville, but I moved it with me to Naples in 2002. And it grew from, a small company that was housed in Jacksonville to over 2,000 employees and over 400 hospital clients across the United States. And I say we were probably one of the first companies in Naples that we had every employee working from home. All over the country, we were in 48 different states. So to say the least, I'm not a politician, I'm a business guy.
Thank you, John. Let's move into the questions, and you can sit down if you'd like. The first one is, how would you ensure that the interests and concerns of all Naples neighborhoods are fairly considered in council decision-making? Explain how you would balance the needs of different neighborhoods.
Well, first of all, I live in Seagate, and we've been forgotten about for years by the city of Naples.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Microphone.
I said I live in Seagate. I have for the last, since 2003. And we've been forgotten about by the city. Nothing's been changed up there since I've lived there, other than the parks get mowed and we get the streets repaved every now and then. I was in River Park East yesterday, and nothing's been done there since I think that neighborhood started, other than rebuilding the thing. But the Naples City Council has to set priorities by neighborhood. They need to come up with a definite plan by neighborhood, and that's going to take a lot of resident involvement to find out what's important in your neighborhood that the city needs to prioritize. And they need to publish that plan. Right now, they just reprioritize every year depending on who screams the loudest. So I really think it needs to be part of the 45 comprehensive plan. It says these are specific plans and action points for each neighborhood.
Thank you. Second question. How would you collaborate with the Collier County Commission and staff to minimize the negative impacts on Naples?
That's a tough question. Obviously, there needs to be a lot of collaboration between the county and the city. Anything the county does affects the city. And what we do in the city doesn't necessarily affect the county. So there needs to be at least a dialogue between both parties to consider impact of growth on the city of Naples, whether it's, you know, that we get some impact fees or what. I don't know the right answer at this point, but there is not now a lot of collaboration between the city and the county, and that needs to change drastically if we're going to get a handle on what we need to do in the city of Naples to handle the growth that's in the county.
Great, thank you. Explain how you would work toward implementing the priorities identified in the Naples Comprehensive Plan, specifically maintaining the small town feel and preserving the green jewel. Outline practical measures you would recommend to maintain Naples' unique character and environmental assets.
Now, first of all, I think, again, I think they have them in place where you can't cut down trees. There's a lot of city-owned trees in the city of Naples. I've got a big banyan tree in my front yard. The city needs to do a better job of maintaining them because they plant them and forget them, unfortunately. But I think the city's done a fairly good job of maintaining what they call a green jewel in the comprehensive plan. Small town feel, you know, I get the small town feel when I'm in neighborhoods, but I don't know there's any small town feel when you're down on Fifth Avenue paying $60 for a hamburger. There's nothing quaint about that either. And since I've been here, there's been a lot of money spent on Fifth Avenue. The real estate's gone through the roof, and the businesses are suffering because the rents on those properties on Fifth Avenue are going through the roof as well. I have a friend whose rent just went up $100 a square foot. Fortunately, he's only got 1,000 square feet, but that's still $100,000 a year. He has to pay more in rent. I think enhancing the parks, maybe addressing parking issues, and making Fifth Avenue, 3rd Street not so traffic, covered in traffic. And we had some calming done in those areas to make it feel like you can walk around on the streets and visit the different stores and that sort of thing. As far as keeping the traffic down, I don't know what you do about that unless we start charging a fee to drive in the city. But that's not going to happen either. I've always said, let's build a toll booth on I-75 and charge a bunch of money to come this way. It's free going the other way. So anyway, I think anything we can do, I think getting the pier back is going to give us back some of that feeling. It's a travesty what happened in Gambier Park. You know, they knew that playground needed to be done or redone years and years ago, and they waited and they tore it down. Now there's nothing there. And it may be another couple of years before we get something in its place, because I know they're still bickering about what it's going to look like. So anyway, that's something I want back. You know, I just want my town back too.
Thank you. Number 4, how should the city prioritize projects related to essential resiliency infrastructure, considering the significant and rapidly increasing costs? What funding approaches would you recommend to ensure necessary improvements can be made in a fiscally responsible way?
Right. Well, I know the city, has a 20-year plan. They upped our stormwater assessment on the water bills. And I think it's going to be 25% a year for the next 4 years to help pay for this project. I don't think we have the luxury of waiting 20 years. I would be in favor of issuing bonds, municipal bonds, secured by the revenue from the stormwater surcharge on our water bill. I think the city needs to start exploring different revenue streams, whether it be paying for parking or whatever it is. But on the other hand, they need to start being fiscally smart about the expenses that they have and eliminating waste and try to, between the two, come up with the money a lot sooner than later. Like I said, I would be in favor of a bond issue, taking a mortgage out on the airport. I don't know what legally we can, I know we can take a bond issue out, but that just needs to be something that's explored and not kicked down the road for the next 20 years.
Thank you. Number 5, how would you define the dividing line between the roles of council members and city staff when running the city? Describe measures you would recommend to prevent micromanagement and ensure that each function operates within its proper scope as outlined in the city charter.
Yeah. What I know is the city council is tending to micromanage a lot of the departments at this point. I had 2,000 employees and probably 100 managers. I told my managers what their job was, what I expected from them, and told them to go do their job. And if they didn't do their job, then they'd hear from me. And if they did their job, they wouldn't hear from me, other than by giving them a pat on the back every now and then. I think the city council has taken on a lot of the role of the different departments, whether it be personal style by the mayor, that she wants to do that, she feels comfortable doing that. But I think the city council and the city need to be the vision setter for the city, and the city manager needs to be the chief operating officer that takes on the daily task of running this town. Let them do their job. If they can't do it, we'll find somebody that can do it. But for these council meetings to start lasting 10 and 12 hours is utterly ridiculous, and I didn't sign up for that.
That's a great lead-in to our final question. Describe your approach to enhancing both the effectiveness and efficiency of the Naples City Council. What specific strategies or processes would you recommend to help the council function more productively and achieve better outcomes for the community?
I've thought about this. I've talked to some people about what can be done. But I know if I was part of a group that was setting the tone and setting policy and setting direction for the city, I think there needs to be a little bit more collaboration between the city councilmen. And I know the Sunshine Law prevents them from meeting outside of the council, but I don't know how in the world you get anything done. And maybe that's why it's taking so long to run the meetings. Whether they need to have more public workshops where they can actually sit down together and talk about things and gain a consensus for how they want to move forward. To me, it's very cumbersome. It will be very cumbersome for me to just meet these people twice a month in chambers and try to get something done. But I know ethically and stuff, the Sunshine Laws prevent us from talking to one another without being in the public eye. So, somehow I'd like to try to figure out a way that we can still stay in the public eye, but still can get together on a routine basis to talk about these issues. They're going to be contentious in chambers so that we can move things along faster than what they are currently being moved along.
Thank you, John. Please summarize why you're the right choice.
We're at a turning point in Naples. We can move forward at a slow, calculated pace, or we can let development take over and, where profits become really the only incentive. I have a vested interest in this town. I have 2 properties, one in Seagate, and I have a condo on Gulf Shore Boulevard in Harbor Cove. Both of them flooded during Ian, so I had to replace both before I had a place to live. So I moved into the condo for 6 months while the house was getting redone. That was extremely frustrating. First of all, it was the worst things ever happened to me in my life other than losing parents. I lost everything. It cost over $1 million to put my house back together. The city didn't even send somebody down to say, hey, we care about you. We're thinking about you. And that's just wrong. Trying to get permits, trying to get help from the city, impossible. It's like they were doing everything they could to keep us from getting any help. That's why if I am elected, I really want to start a city concierge service, a one point of contact for all the residents to help them get things done at City Hall. I mean, I think we are owed that for the type of town that Naples is. And it should be easier for the residents to get help from the city when they need it. You know, I was enjoying retirement. I sold my business in 2024, and I couldn't sit back any longer. So I'm actually kind of upset that I'm having to do this, but I really I know I can make a difference in this town. My family's deeply rooted here, and I am, at this point, not going anywhere. And I really want to see Naples be the jewel that it can be, and once again. So that's why I'm running, and hope I get voted for on February 3rd. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, John. There we go. Thank you. You can exit that way. Well, I'd like to thank all of the candidates, and I'd like to thank all of you for hanging in here and remarkably close to schedule. A couple quick points. The League of Women Voters of Collier County is still in the back if you have any questions about your mail-in ballot or your polling place in the upcoming election. If you want to hear more from the candidates, we are co-sponsoring with, GSAC is co-sponsoring with Moorings Property Owners Association and the Parks Shore Association, another candidate forum this Thursday, January 15th, from 5 to 7 p.m. at Moorings Presbyterian Church. And I also wanted to mention several candidates have mentioned the Naples Comprehensive Plan. They just published that the next community engagement sessions, there will be 2 of them on February 12th, so mark your calendars on those dates. I'd also like to mention that our next GSAC, our annual meeting, is going to be at Admiralty Point at 3:30 on January 27th. And Mayor Heitman will be giving us an update on her priorities. And then on February 17th at our GSAC board meeting, Collier County Commissioner Dan Cole will be providing us his update on his priorities. So with that, again, thank you for coming out today, and please be sure to vote.